Okay, share screen. Share computer sound.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
While Mark does that, I'm just going to start drinking it.
Tell us a bit about Ridgeback.
Mark, evening, and thanks for hosting this great tasting. We're a medium-sized boutique cellar and nestled along the foothills of Paarl Mountain. I think those photos are just really perfectly indicative of the site, and you'll see all the different aspects just make it such a unique place to grow vineyards. And that's what initially drew me to Ridgeback Wines, like I said 20 years ago, was the viticultural potential here, because at that stage we weren't making any wines of our own, and we were delivering to the co-op. Vernon in 2001 managed to take a small parcel of wine or grapes and have it crushed somewhere else, and we made our own wine, and we were very fortunate to win a 5-star right off the bat with that. And that, I think, was enough motivation for him to kick off and get the cellar built.
So just for everybody else's benefit, Vernon, who was in the photograph with you, who owns the estate, he came from what was then Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, and they love their Rhodesian Ridgeback dogs. And it was just a love of their dogs. They just called the estate Ridgeback after the dogs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was just a really nice African theme, and his link to Rhodesia at that stage and the Rhodesian Ridgeback. It was a very, very obvious name to call it. And I think, we get a lot of friends linked to it just because of the general love of animals that we have even before people have tasted our wine. So I think it was a wise choice by Vernon at that stage to call it Ridgeback. Absolutely.
There is a Rhodesian Ridgeback Dog Owners Society in the UK. And I think they are the biggest consumers of your wine, bar none.
I want to do a group taste together and
then have a swirl of it. I love that smell. In fact, I could almost be satisfied with just smelling this wine rather than drinking it all that long. It's just beautiful. Now, to me, I don't know what anybody else. I'm getting black currants straight out of the glass, black currants and sort of vanilla from the oak barrels. And then if you have a slurp, there you go. It's got some lovely acidity. There's some good tannin, but they're softening out nice. And that fruit is cracking. But I would suggest for a 6-year-old wine, it's got plenty of legs left in it yet, Toit.
Yeah, I think we sort of recommend drinking our wines anything between 5 and 10 years of age. It's a warmer area where we produce as well, so the pH is slightly higher, and I think our wines peak more or less where this Cabernet Franc is right now. It's such a stunning wine. And it's funny, when we started the farm, they would, your first question would be, what else are you planting besides Shiraz? And we were some of the first people to start planting Cabernet Franc. And initially, there wasn't all that much interest around it. But at the moment, the Paarl area where we find ourselves is absolutely a hotspot for people buying in, looking to source Cabernet Franc from as well. So numerous awards are being won from this area. So we really are very proud and very, very happy that one can experiment, and there are not all these regulations that sort of keep you to producing wines only in certain areas. And we were able to experiment, and it's come off so well.
You do see Cabernet Franc further north in France, in the Loire Valley, as a sort of a mono-varietal wine, but very rarely elsewhere around the world do you see it. And this is quite an unusual thing then, isn't it, to have a sort of single varietal Cabernet Franc, Toit?
Yeah, and I think the big difference between ours and the French wines are we're making Cabernet Franc with body sort of more in the style of Cabernet Sauvignon, where the French are really light and accessible style of Cabernet Franc that they make. The viticulture behind it, I mean, if Cabernet Franc lends itself to being a fantastic blender, because it's a little bit more linear, sort of a straight up and down wine. And if you want to bottle it on its own, as you say, it's not one of the most well-known single varietals. It needs to have shoulders, and that has to come from lots of sunlight directly onto the bunches. You want to develop those tannins nicely on the berries. So typically, this wine, before we even harvest it, we have a team of ladies who would go through that block about 8 times. And the various stages would be, at about 30 centimeters, we would start dropping off bunches from any little shoots that we can already at that stage see they're far behind. Once the shoots are fully developed, any stragglers at that second stage would also be dropped behind, and we start plucking leaves when the berries start showing about we call it pea size, which is self-explanatory. But when they reach that side, we break out all the leaves on the morning sun side to get as much direct sunlight and burn off what we call pyrazines, or the sort of the greener component, which is lovely. It's something which you find in Sauvignon Blanc as well, and there's that sort of lovely green pea style asparagus and gooseberry style. But in a red wine, you don't really want that. So we want to get rid of as much of that as possible. And so we break out all the leaves, lots of sunlight in there, and then any big bunches we trim in half as well.
So nighttime harvesting is one of those things that it's to do with. Well, why would you do it at nighttime when you can't see anything? You obviously got the tractors there with the headlights on, making sure everybody can see what they're doing. So why do it at night?
Well, firstly, I was just going to say I actually get butterflies when I see it's harvest time again. It's the most exhilarating, amazing time, which is a combination of fear and excitement. It's just a magical time on the farm. So we do nighttime harvesting predominantly for the white cultivars, because it can really get hot here. I mean, we're looking at daytime temperatures of anything between 32 and about 45, 48 degrees Celsius. So for the delicate flavors of a Sauvignon Blanc, those would just be ruined in the heat. So we try and start at about 10 o'clock at night, or if it's still a little bit warm, then we'd wait until midnight and then we kick off. And we try and have everything in by 8:30, 9 o'clock the next morning. So it's beautiful. It's just most amazing. If you start with a cool bunch, then you have less oxidation and less flavor loss into your juice and then into your final wine. So that's the main reason for that. And then also for productivity for the people. They like working at night because it just keeps them out of the heat as well. So it's a very motivated, fantastic team we have doing all this for us.
So the journey red. So well, everybody's got the bottle, but so here's if you like it's a Bordeaux. It's a I won't say it's a classic Bordeaux, Ben, because you've got 36% Cabernet Franc, 28% Cabernet Sauvignon, 26% Merlot, and 10% Petit Verdot.
Looking at the blend, every year we have a look at which cultivar is the strongest of the 4. We call it the journey because it sort of has to do with the early pioneers journeying into the interior, but it's also our journey into, as you mentioned, getting towards the full Bordeaux blend, which is missing the Malbec.
And what should we be tasting?
The more youthful journey has a sort of a slightly sweeter nose, and that's got to do with the style of oaking that we use on that, where with the Cabernet Franc on its own, it's I've used sort of less of the fuller toast and some more medium. Now, medium toast barrels gives you more mouthfeel or sort of cleanness to the top of your palate, where a higher toast gives you sort of slightly more sweetness on the blend. So I think that's the most important difference between the two for me. You'll definitely see that the 15 is a lot more youthful. If you're looking at the tannin and the sort of the grip that you're finding on your palate, you can see that one can really age another 3-4 years easily. Even though it's still drinking nicely now, it still hasn't reached its peak, and which to me is lovely to see, because we're sold out of this on this side, and you're always wondering how it's tracking in other markets, and I think it's just holding up so beautifully.
Do you have any game nearby? And how do you protect the vines from animals or from wildlife?
I love that question. It's actually, and it's so relevant because we're busy with young vines at the moment, and it's so frustrating because we have young buck that come down straight from the mountain, and they love, as soon as a vine sort of reaches knee height, it has the young little growth points are sweeter, it appears, and they always nibble those things off. So you're trying to get your vine trained up to the first wire, which is at about 1 meter, and it just never gets there because they're forever chewing it off. So now, instead of using any chemicals, we have a fantastic hot chili sauce, and I wouldn't believe it myself before until I tried it. and we actually put that in a knapsack and we spray the vines with it, and they just absolutely dislike it. So I only learned this about 3 years ago. It took me quite a while to get there.
I like that hot chili sauce, the new organic grape growers tool against animals. Excellent stuff. The other thing is, what you do is absolutely stunning. You do a Viognier dessert wine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And the whole thing behind that as well is my whole sort of start is viticulture. So that's why, to me, it's so important to do everything from there. When we harvest our Viognier, which is really ripe, we harvest it at about 24 degrees budding, which is more or less where we would harvest red grapes. That next day, our team of ladies goes through and they have little razor blades and they nip all the stalks of the remaining bunches, which is about half of the block. And the whole reason behind that is so that we can't translocate any moisture between the vine and the bunches. And what happens is you have raisins forming on the berries, and about 3 weeks after we've harvested our normal Viognier, we come through and we harvest these ones. And they, Mark, I should have sent you some photos of that actually if I'd known about it. It's just beautiful to see. It's whole bunch pressed, and it's just absolute raisin. So your recovery from that is minimal, but it is just so intense. And it's a wonderful wine to make. And then what we do is we ferment it with a really weak yeast because we want to stop it when once our sweetness and acidity is really in balance. And then we stop the ferment through a process of, we call it thermoflash, but it's almost like pasteurization. So no chemicals at all. We heat it up to 80 degrees for 2 seconds and then bring it right down. It just kills the yeast. And then your wine ages from there. And it's fantastic. We bottled our 2020 about a month ago.
Yeah, I think everyone's saying, yes, please, we'd like to try the dessert wine. We've also decided, Mark, that we're going to auction off the Viognier, the last bottle that you've got in your fridge. We're going to auction off the charity now. Because
wow.
Lots of people want to try it.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm game for that. I tell you, because we're giving from these two tastings. We've also got another £200 going to the NHS charity that we did that we said we would do when we started. It's normally, I think it's a £17 or £18 bottle. So I'll
start the bids, please, at £20. Who would like? So it's all going to Captain Tom's NHS charitable donation fund. 22, we've got 30. Can I have some more bids, please, online? You can also raise a paddle. We've got £30. Bearing in mind, this is a £20 bottle of wine, ladies and gentlemen. It's the last one in the UK. 40. We've got 40 from Martin. I need more than 45, please, ladies and gentlemen.
I can't say I can.
50. I need more than 50. I'll take Toit's clapping. £20 bottle of wine, ladies and gentlemen. It's the last one in the UK. It's very rare.
And it's delicious.
Actually, Toit, could you throw in one of your gilets?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll make a plan. Yeah.
Okay, if we can get up, I need more than £55 though, because the postage alone for that puffer jacket, 60. Can I get 80 for the last bottle? I've got 100. Mark McCree, £100.
I think we should stop it there. That's fantastic. Goes to who's got it for £100?
Mark McCree, sold for £100.
Well done, Mark.
Well done, Mark. Good on you. Fantastic. Well done. Very sadly, that's going to have to come out of my fridge next week then, obviously.
Sorry, Mark, don't drink it. Mark McCree.
What the things we do. The things we do.
Mark McCree's birthday. So happy birthday, Mark.
Happy birthday, Mark. Good on you.
And what a great way to almost round off this evening.
Yeah.
Mark, it's fantastic. Thank you for. I mean, this is it's my first Zoom tasting, so it's amazing how the world's changing, and it's wonderful. It actually feels like we're sitting with a room full of people.
It absolutely does. It's great. It's really great, and with some lovely company, lovely wines. Thank you very much for. It's been really interesting to hear all about what you get up to. I've learned a lot as well tonight, so thank you for that. Thanks again, everybody.